back. Welcome back. Happy New Year. 2026 is here. As we closed out 2025 last night. Overall, 2025 was a blessing. It brought a lot of joy. It brought our second child. So 2025 was an amazing time, and I'm just looking to build off of that in 26. I have a video that I want to make about what I expect in 2026, what I want to do, some goals I have, things of that nature, right? So overall, I really do think that 2026 is going to be a good year. I want to carry the momentum I had into this new year, and just keep building, keep learning, keep growing individually as well. The whole 9 yards, right? So just keep being me and just keep expanding my knowledge and expanding who I am day after day. One thing I want to do is at least for the podcast too. I want to start going live on YouTube. December has been a crazy month. I wanted to go in December. It was just a crazy month. Work events, holidays, family, all that. So having a newborn. So it's been a roller coaster, but we're here. So I'm back. I want to get more on a routine schedule. I definitely want to start going live, and making live, less about finances and more about things I actually enjoy outside of finances. The episodes I can keep that really for financial topics, but for going live, that's just like sports, entertainment. I'm big into anime, things like that. So looking forward to working on that and starting that soon. So one thing, of course, we gotta give it an update at the NBA. Miami, man, their years like the stock market. They have their ups, they have their downs, and they're just kind of going through. Um, you know, that's what happens when you have a younger team. If you think about it, Miami's core is pretty young, and they're really starting to develop really well. One thing about Miami, they're always going to develop young talent, and we're really starting to see it. But Miami has to kind of make a decision here soon. Do they want to keep going young, or do they want to go actually compete? Because Miami, they're not in the position to compete. What are you gonna do with Hero? If you're not gonna extend them, you're gonna have to trade them by All Star break, or hope you do a sign and trade in the off season. So it's going to be real interesting to see what Miami does here in the next couple of months. If they want to go out and try to bring in a centerpiece they can build around, if that's even possible with the assets that we have. I'm really interested. If it's me, if Miami wants to keep the young core, I say, trade Norman Powell while his value is high. I know it sounds insane, but Norman Powell's going to want to go win. He wants to go try to go compete. So if we're going to stick with our youth movement, why not try to bring in more assets? Um, I know the Terry Rozier situation makes it hard. For you guys who haven't been following, Terry Rozier was investigated for insider betting. And for what I've been reading, at the time of the deal, the Hornets and the NBA knew that he was being investigated, but Miami didn't. And the deal still went through. So once Miami caught wind of that, it's like, hey, don't you think this is some type of information that you would want to, let us know about? Because we might not even make that deal knowing that he's under a federal investigation. Um, so I think what should either happen is his contract should either get voided, or Miami should get their pick back to open up more picks that they can trade to go get a superstar. That's what I think the two options is. Because the NBA, they do kind of got to make this right, especially if you knew about the whole situation. Um, you got to go make that right. So, that's what 27, $28 million on the books for Miami right now. So, they either void it or let them use that to go, make a deal because it expires after this season. So let Miami use that to go make a deal. So that way, again, they can go add that for some cap filler. There's teams who will most likely take the cap filler, let it drop at the end of the year, especially if they're going through a rebuild, depending on what the deal structure would be. So more on Miami once I go live, but that's just an update for them. Going over to the finance side of things, we did see Bitcoin. Well, we're still currently seeing Bitcoin dip. So right now, if I check today, Bitcoin, last time I checked, I think it was at 87,000. So let me pull it up. Yeah, so Bitcoin's around 87,000 right now. Now, is this a buying opportunity or will it dip even further? In my opinion, it all depends on, your price point and if you even truly believe in Bitcoin, right? So that's the thing. If you're not educated in it, you don't believe in it, then I wouldn't necessarily advise to go invest into it. But if it's something you've been looking into, you're looking for opportunity earlier this year when it's at 100K, when it's at 125, 87, this is your time to buy in if you want. I think this is a good price point to buy in. I mean, if you look how much it dipped, I mean, I'm pretty sure Bitcoin, the past year is down 6%. So, you can definitely get in while it's down 6%. And it's down further from its all time high. But overall, like, if that's over a 5% decline, why not buy in and just see? You don't have to make it all your portfolio. Bitcoin's only just a small fraction of my portfolio, but I want to put in at these prices, so just in case, I'm a dollar average in, so just in case Bitcoin does go back up, I have exposure to that. So, my thing is going to be stocks, tried and true. My thing is going to be ETFs. My thing is going to be index funds, and only a couple top companies that I will invest in. But overall, like, it's not a bad idea to have a little bit of something because you never know what that asset's going to do. And I've seen Bitcoin hit 125. We all just seen it hit it this year. So why not try to go ahead and see if we can get back to that level again? You don't have to put massive amount of money in. Put in what you're comfortable with. For me, I put only like $40 a month over in Bitcoin. But again, it's just something that I can have exposure to. So I don't know. I just feel like if you're a believer, like, am I a believer in Bitcoin? I'm a believer that some type of change is going to come some point in my life, and I think that's, you look at gold right now, you look at what silver been doing the past year, and then you look at what the digital currency is doing while the dollar's weakening. So is it a sign? I don't know, but it doesn't necessarily hurt to have that asset, in my opinion. So we'll see where it goes. We'll see what 26 brings when it comes to Bitcoin, and we'll just go from there. So again, it's more long term. I'm not thinking a couple months. I'm not thinking a year. I'm thinking 5, 8, 10 years down the road to see where it hits. If you track the history of Bitcoin, you've seen it explode from where it's been to where it's at now. So it's just something that you're gonna have to make that decision with and kind of go through the volatility wave. Like, Bitcoin's very volatile, so you got to be mentally strong to go ahead and invest into an asset like that. But with that being said, we are here at episode 20. So I decided to make this about the history of the 401k. So when I was looking through this, I found some really interesting facts that I would have just liked to share about the 401k. So I'm really interested and really excited to share the information that I found. Again, the more I continue to learn, the more I continue to grow. That's what I want to do with the channel. So the more I learn, the more I grow, the more I want to share. So we're gonna go ahead and we'll get started. All right. So before we get started, of course, what's a 401k? So a 401k is an employer-sponsored retirement investment account that lets you save and grow your money, for the future, come retirement, of course. And you can use it for major tax advantages. Your employer will either match, whatever type of match that they have. My employer, they do a percentage match of 7%. So there are two different type of 401ks, your employer will typically offer, which is a traditional 401k and a Roth 401k. So you may be asking, what's the difference? So a traditional 401k is basically you put money in and you can actually use it as a tax advantage now, but then when you go to pull out, you will be subject to more taxes. A Roth 401k is when you basically pay those taxes today, and then you can pull out tax-free come retirement. So The eligibility age is usually 59 and a half for you to pull out your 401k without the 10% fee. There is some situations like I believe it's the 55 rule, where because like for my employer, right as of right now, you can be 55 and retire. So there's a special rule in there that can allow you to pull out without having a 10% penalty. Come that time, I'll probably have, a licensed professional to go ahead and help me out and, making those type of decisions, because at that point, you're going to be dealing with, or should be dealing with, quite a bit of money, depending on how long you've been, contributing to your 401k, if you've been matching your 401k, and how long you've been putting in. One thing I hear from all the professionals is compounding and time. Time's your superpower. So if you get into a really good job at a very young age, why not match it? And why not just match your 401k and then budget around that match? Because at that point, you're getting free money, which we'll go over a little later. But I have a Roth 401k personally, but because again, like when I go towards retirement, I want to pull that out, as much tax free as possible, and I want to avoid the 10% fee by pulling out early. So again, come around like 55. I'll probably start. It's never too early to start prepping for retirement. But when I'm hitting like 50, when I'm hitting my mid 40s, then I'm gonna really dial in. I'm gonna really look into the necessary steps I have to make. What I can do, what I've been missing. I heard about the 4% rule. So basically, what the 4% rule is you take 4% out of your portfolio. So whatever that is, you take that out every year, and that should essentially keep your portfolio running while you're still enjoying, enjoying your hard work that you had over the years, right? So a couple things that I want to look into as I continue to go on this journey. So even if you're a business owner, like you can open up a solo 401k. But again, like if you're going to go open up a solo 401k, you want to go to the IRS website and check it out. There's a lot of information on the IRS website that can actually guide you through this. And then you also want to talk to a professional, because again, you got to spend money to make money is what I say. So if you're going to be cheap about things, and you're going to miss compliance, and you're going to do things that you don't think that can hinder you, but that will hinder you because you're not educated enough like the professionals are, that's going to set you back even further than just paying someone to do it for you. So my advice is it's never hurt to have a professional. Again, when I get older, that's one thing I want to do. I want to go ahead and get a professional. I want them to help me map out what I need to do so I can enjoy my time with my family. One thing I want to do is I do want to retire early. I know there's a lot that comes with that, but we just gotta see where everything lands around that time. But at the end of the day, the best thing you can do is match your 401k. Make sure your savings rate is up there. That's one thing I want to work on in 2026 is making sure I'm increasing my savings rate, not just for my 401k, not just for my individual investment account, but just for having just cash on hand, because it doesn't hurt to always have cash on hand. Cash is king. You hear all the time, cash is king. So, one thing I want to really focus on is like my savings rate as I continue to pay off debt, as I continue to go on this journey, as I continue to match my 401k and living off of that match. All right, so let's go over some history of the 401k because I found it, I nerded out, so I found it really interesting. But, before the 401k, pensions plans were really the most sought out plans for retirement. So you don't, a lot of companies don't really see a pension plan now. If you have a company that does offer you a pension plan, you're probably in a pretty good company, a pretty good space, because a lot of companies did get away from the pension plans. But 401ks were actually introduced in the Revenue Act of 1978 under the section, 401k. This was actually under the Jimmy Carter administration. And what I found interesting is that the 401k was really added to the tax code, but it wasn't really for a retirement plan. So it was added for employees to receive tax advantages for the company's profit sharing, which and then helped the companies take that as a tax advantage as well. So I thought that was very interesting when I saw that and when I was looking into that. But 2 years later, a man named Ted Benna. Benna actually worked with the IRS to propose a plan to create the 401k to what we know as today. So Benna actually took the time and he actually went through in a fully revised 401k in 1981. So this allowed employees to put their earned dollars into a retirement vehicle. So the 401k is very new, very new. So that's why you're seeing a lot of people, on social media saying, "Oh, 401ks are now at all-time high investing 401ks. So many people are investing into it. You're seeing so much success with it. It's because it was really new, and just like anything, you need time to compound. And now those who started late 90s, early 2000s are really starting to see the portfolios compound. Same thing that our generation is going to go through when we know in about a 5 to 10 year period, because it tracks the stock market. So like my 401k tracks the S&P 500. S&P 500 overall has a 10% annual return. So, again, this is going to be the long term. So that's why it's important to understand these things. That's why it's important to, learn the history of it. So when I saw that in 1981, it was revised for a retirement vehicle. Benna actually used it for his own company, the Johnson's company, and they saw a lot of success with that. So after seeing the success from their employers, it started buzzing around the United States, and you see more and more companies start to really take on the 401k into what we know as today. Um, what was real interesting is that I also found that Ronald Reagan, he wanted to try to ban the 401k due to the fear of tax revenue impact. Great thing that didn't happen, right? Sometimes theories may sound good in the moment, but then when time plays out, it's like, good thing that decision wasn't made, right? Because 401ks are making a lot of people rich. A 401k is making a lot of people millionaires that we don't even know of. Um, so that 401k is a very, very powerful tool that can give you exposure to the stock market, and you're just letting it run in the background while your employer is matching. So let's just say the S&P finished even. Let's just say you finished even 0%. Your employer still is giving you free dollars, right? So you're still getting a return regardless of how you want to look at it. But that's the strength. That's what's so unique about the 401k, is that the tax benefits, the Roth, when you could go ahead and pull out tax free towards at retirement, like, and then on top of compounding, and then on top of your employer matching, like, it's a very powerful tool, and I think it's very underrated. Um, and what I also found interesting was that the Roth 401k wasn't introduced until 2001. So in 2005, the statistics showed that around 70 million Americans has a 401k plan, compared to 7.1 million back in the mid 1980s and the early 1990s. So again, it's because people are seeing how powerful this tool is. You just take it out your check and just let it run in the background. Don't pull out the 401k, because then you're taking away all your compounding power that you have. So when you're looking at this is for a long-term vehicle. You really shouldn't take out your 401k unless you absolutely have to, because once it comes time for retirement, and if you've been matching that 401k, you're really going to see you're going to really see your portfolio, and you're going to look one day and be like, wow, like, I can't believe I have this just sitting here for retirement, and I'm going to go enjoy my retirement. So again, I just found it very interesting that when I was looking through the history of the 401k, it actually wasn't meant to be what it is today. But then once one person decided to try to change it and actually use it in their own company and found success in their own company, and then we were able to adopt that to our generation and what we have today, you know kudos to Benna, because that's a very, very powerful tool. It's a very powerful tool that can make you very rich. And then you might be thinking, well, I'm already behind. I'm already here. I'm already this. you know, maybe it's too late. It's never too late. It's never too late to get started, because I'd rather have, even if I had, let's just say, 80,000. I'd rather have 80,000 than nothing come retirement. So again, it's never too late, to, put money aside for your future self, for you to enjoy and for your family to enjoy. So what we're going to do, we're going to go actually, I pulled this up from NerdWallet, and it's the median value of 401ks per age group. So the reason why you do the median and you don't just do the average is because the higher, 110%, like, it just fluctuates the numbers so bad, because they're just way higher than anyone in their age group. So what experts do and what professionals do, they look at the median when it comes to 401k, because it gives you a more true, accurate answer on, where you may stand within your age group. So from 25 to 34, the median value is, $16,255. From 35 to 44, it's $39,958. From 45 to 54 is $67,796. And from 55 to 64, it's $95,642. Now, so are you behind? Maybe. Are you ahead? Maybe. But again, it's personal finance. It's your own journey. But that's why it's still never too late to get started. And it's alarming, because, like, when I'm 55 going towards retirement, I don't know if I want just 90K in my 401k, because look at the economy now, look at, inflation, and look at prices now. Imagine when we're 55. The dollar that you have today is not going to be the dollar that you have tomorrow. So if I'm walking out retirement with 95K, like, how long is that really going to last you? A year and a half, 2 years? If you think about it. So again, you're retired. Like, you're not working your whole life. So if you're not bringing in other streams of income, then you got to figure out what you're going to do with that amount of money. Now, don't get me wrong, 95,000 is a lot of money. It's a lot of money. But at the same time, you've been trying to save this for how long? And you still have so long to live still. So 95 may not cut it. So you're going to have to either work, which, again, you're trying to get to retirement. You're not trying to retire and go back to work. So you're either going to have to work, or you're going to have to invest while you're young, and you're going to have to find other streams of income. So that way, when you want to retire, because no one wants to work forever. Some people may have to work forever, but no one really truly wants to work forever. So you're going to have to figure out a way to sacrifice a little bit today to have abundance comes towards retirement. All right, so before we close out, it's a couple of financial facts for the 401k. So the 401k, it will follow the stock market. Some employers may actually let you pick what index you want to invest into. A lot of employers may have already, like, a custom little index where it tracks, mostly U.S. stocks, maybe a little bit of bonds, and maybe a little bit of international stocks, right? So who knows? It all depends on what your employer has laid out for you. For me, I just strictly do the S&P 500 right now in my 401k. It's one of, if not the safest index to invest to over long term. You heard me say it earlier, 10% rate of return over its lifetime. And it tracks 500 companies within the United States. So, I want to keep my 401k, like, I want to be aggressive, but also want to simplify as much as possible. And that's why I only do the S&P. I'll save my individual account for other type of indexes and things of that nature, other ETFs. On average, the 401k is the first account to hit $1 million. I got this from my research online, and also the Money Guys show. They also mention this as well. So on average, when you go to that millionaire status and you hit that in your portfolio, in your brokerage account, it's most likely going to be your 401k at that $1 million status. Because again, you're taking that match. So whatever you're putting in, your employer is matching that. And you're going to let that grow with compound interest over time at an annual return of 10%. Even if you do 8%, that's doable. 8% is on the very low end. You'll still walk away with a nice chunk of change. The 401ks, it also pushes more money into the markets because, again, it's due to what you're contributing, and it's also what your employer is matching. So it's also putting more money into the markets. Now, the markets are going to be the markets. If you track the markets, if you are in the markets, it's a wild time. You can't predict it. You can't guess it. You don't know what's going to come. So that's why you just put it in there. You let it sit. Dollar average in, which your 401k does for you every 2 weeks when you get paid. So you just gotta let it sit there. You gotta let it ride. You just gotta think long term. You gotta be real patient about this. Don't blow it up to the point where you're going to financially hurt yourself down the long run. I know it's easier said than done. Hardships happen. Everyone has a different walk of life, but if you really can, try to avoid touching it at all times. And again, going back to it, if your employer matches, if your employer gives you a match, or whether that's on a dollar, whether that's a percentage, take the match. Like, why not? You're throwing away free money. And this again could change your life down the road, but you're literally throwing away free money. So if if I'm walking down, or if someone hands me, if I win a lottery ticket, $20, I'm gonna be happy for that. I may have spent $1, why don't you take that mindset and apply it to your 401k? If you put $250 in and your employer matches $250, that's $500 a check right there going in. That's $1,000 a month, and you're only using $250. You can budget off of a $250 and live on what you need to live off of. But it takes discipline, it takes time, and it just takes commitment. But if you're not matching, you're literally throwing away free money come retirement. And people say, well, tomorrow's not promised. Yeah, true. That's a valid argument. But if you look at the statistics, you're most likely going to be here come the retirement age. Realistically, if you take care of yourself, if you eat right, if you go to the gym, if you try to be healthy, all these things, like, is that guaranteed? No, but it does heavily increase your odds. And again, like, try not to withdraw. Don't be like me. When I was, younger, I would think I was like 22. I borrowed against my 401k. Don't do that, because again, that is going to derail your 401k growth. Luckily, I was able to correct my habits. I was able to start, finding what financial literacy actually means and start growing my portfolio more. So, the past 3 years, I have seen it like double within each year, which is an amazing thing to see. And I just got to keep being disciplined and keep, going. Of course, the market dictates that as well. But again, if you have that match, put it in there, because the market may have a bad year, market may have 2 bad years, but again, this is long term. I still got a long way to go until I retire. So this is a long term, investment. So a lot of people may look even year after year, month after month. You're going to see the stock market go like this. It's going to wave. It's going to wave. But just expand it out more. Look at a 10-year, 20-year, 30-year period, and you just see it goes up. The stock market, the S&P goes up, and it always goes up. There's going to be down draws. There's going to be setbacks. That's the time for you to buy in. That's not the time for you to sell. That's the time for you to buy in, build bigger positions for yourself, because if you have a 10, 20% drawback into the S&P, it's going to bounce back. It's only just a matter of time. So you're getting stocks off for 20%. And this is why you want to do indexes, because indexes, they will have a higher chance of bouncing back. S&P, 100%. That's the thing. S&P is going to have a 100% bounce back. Don't believe me? Do your own research, look it up yourself, and take your own notes. But the S&P is going to have a 100% bounce back year after year. It's too many rich people, too many powerful people, too many big companies that are in the stock market for it just to collapse. We have one of the biggest economies in the world. So if we collapse, it's not just us that, feel the pain. The whole global economy will feel the pain. So that's why they print that money. That's why, the Feds, they have that money printer. Is it good? No, because it devalues the dollar. But again, for the stock market, do your own research and you'll see for yourself. I always tell people too, like, let's just say, you heard me say it's the first account to $1 million. If you even don't hit $1 million, you got 200K, 400K, 500K. Still better than nothing. That's still better than nothing. So when I'm looking at people and they're like saying, well, I don't know when I can get started, when I can do this, just do it now. Why not? If you have your budget in place, if you're in a good spot, again, every situation is different. Why not go ahead and try to do it now, for a better tomorrow? So, but that's all for me. Again, Happy New Year. Definitely excited to see what 2026 brings. I want everyone to stay healthy, stay safe. If you are going to get into investing, if you are going to get into saving, I hope you're able to, hit whatever goals that you have. So if you have a goal of $1,000, let's just say you want to hit $1,000. Well, how are you going to do that? Well, in 10 months, I want to have $1,000 into my savings account. $100 a month I would have to put aside. So when you're thinking about financial habits and you're thinking about money, break it down to the smallest t, because it's going to make you realize what you have to do in order to hit your goal.